Hi, my name's David. Today we're going to change the oil in a 2007 Honda CBR600. This is something I think you should do yourself. It's a very easy job, and there's no reason to pay somebody else to do it. You'll do a better job doing it yourself, and you'll be more in touch with your motorcycle too. So we'll get going here. Okay, the parts you need are an oil filter. I get mine from Honda, and for my model the part number is 15410 MFJ D01, and then you'll also need the washer for the drain plug. It's part number 94109-12000. I use the Honda fully synthetic motor oil, 10W30 for my bike. You could use any brand of four-cycle motorcycle fully synthetic oil. You don't have to use fully synthetic, but it's better than a blend, and definitely better than the non-synthetic oil. So you'll need 3 quarts for this job. Before we drain the oil, we're going to take the bike outside and run it for about 5 minutes, get the oil warmed up, and then we will remove the drain plug and drain the oil. So I'm going to take her outside and run her for a few minutes. We'll be right back. Okay, here are the tools and items you'll need to change your oil. You need a drain pan, and having some rags or shop towels around is handy. You'll eventually need a funnel when we're pouring the oil in. A funnel will be useful. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver when you're removing parts of the fairing. A oil filter wrench is handy. This fits the filter perfectly. You just put a 3/8 socket or ratchet on it. And you'll need a 5mm Allen. It's handy to have the socket, and then this version of it is handy also. You'll need a 17mm socket for removing the drain plug. And if you want to do this job properly, you'll need a torque wrench for torquing the drain plug. It needs to be torqued, I believe, at 22 foot-pounds. I ride my bike at the track, so I safety wire my drain plug and my oil filter. So if you want to do that, it's handy to have a safety wiring tool along with some safety wire. So, okay, we've warmed the bike up, and we're going to start removing the fairing. I'll show you what we need to do that. Okay, before we drain the oil, if you have a rear stand, it's convenient to put the bike on a rear stand. It gets the bike vertical. Honda tells you before you drain the oil, you should have the bike vertical. If you don't have a rear stand, I would just put a block of wood underneath your side stand to get the bike more or less vertical. Then we're going to go up front here, and we're going to loosen the 2 side fairings. And generally, I think you can do this without removing them. But step 1 will be to take your 5mm Allen and loosen this screw right here. Remove it actually. And also this one here. And then underneath, the very bottom, there's a black plastic screw that you unscrew with a Phillips, and then you pull out the center of it. It's one of these funny little Honda gizmos, and then you pull the whole thing out. And then we're going to remove these screws, same screws on the other side, and with it detached at the bottom and these side screws removed, you should have enough room to work without removing the whole bloody fairing. So we'll be right back. Okay, this is the little fitting at the very bottom front of that fairing I was pointing to earlier. Just a little plastic gizmo, and you unscrew the center of it several times, and then you kind of pull that center part out, and then you pull the whole thing out. Okay, more on removing this side fairing. It's really pretty easy to remove. You undo this screw up here. There's another screw back here. These are all the 5mm Allen screws. There's one here. And then back underneath here, there's another one. So just undo those. I'm going to go over to the other side now of the bike and undo those same screws on the other side of the bike. Okay, we're over on the left side of the bike. You'll need to remove this screw here, and you'll need to remove this screw here, and this one here, and then there's another one down here. Just remove those, and then you'll see the side fairing just drops down out of the way. Right back. Okay, we removed the screws for that lower fairing on both sides, and then it just drops right out of the way, giving you good access to your drain plug right there. And then back here behind the water tank, you can just see the top of the fuel filter. So I'm going to get the oil pan in position here and remove that safety wire on the drain plug, and then we'll drain the oil into the oil pan. Okay, if you've got an old cardboard box, you might cut a big piece of it, put it underneath your drain pan. That way if you spill any oil at all, it goes onto the cardboard and not onto your garage floor, which you then have to clean up. Position your drain pan and get your 17mm socket on that drain plug, and then just remove that drain plug, and the oil is going to squirt forward, gush forward, so make sure you've got that oil pan forward more so than back. So we'll get that oil in that pan right away. Okay, before you pull that drain plug, it's a good idea to go to your filler cap and your oil filler cap and remove it. That'll allow the oil to drain out more quickly. So I'm going to do that right now. See, I've got a little bit of safety wiring to remove, and after I've done that, then I'll go ahead and pull that drain plug. Okay, once you've drained that oil, take the drain plug, put the new washer on it. This is not the stock drain plug, it's a magnetic drain plug, so yours will look different, and this one is drilled for wiring, which the stock one is not. So before you install that drain plug, take a clean rag and wipe clean that area where the drain plug goes in. Make sure there's no dirt there before you install that drain plug. And then we'll torque it to 22 pounds. Be right back. Okay, we've got the drain plug in. I've got the torque wrench on it, set to 22 foot-pounds, and we're going to tighten it up to 22 foot-pounds. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to safety wire it, which you probably won't do, so I'll be right back shortly. Safety wiring is real easy. You do need the pliers, the safety wire pliers. You can see here what I've done is run it through the two holes, and then I'm running it up to this bracket here, and you always want the safety wiring pulling on the nut, or the drain plug in this case, in a direction that will tighten it, not loosen it. So I'm going to finish this here. We'll be right back, and then we'll take the oil filter off. Okay, before we remove that oil filter, it's not a bad idea to wrap either a bunch of rags around the header pipes, or in this case I decided to use some tin foil, because that oil filter is going to drip as you remove it. It's going to drip oil onto those pipes, and it's not a big deal if that happens. It just creates smoke when you start up the bike, so this eliminates having to try to clean that oil off. So we're then going to take our filter wrench and on a ratchet and put it on the back of the filter and unscrew the filter. Okay, before you remove that oil filter completely, once you've unscrewed it a few turns, you'll start to see oil dripping off of it, and so that you need to have a pan underneath this, and you can see the oil dripping off there onto that foil. So just undo it a few turns. Let the oil run out. This is the oil that's in the oil filter, and just be patient. You want to have as little oil flow. So anyway, that's the wrench falling off there. So you can just do it by hand now. Just let that oil run out, and once it seems to have stopped dripping, then you can take it off the rest of the way. Okay, once you've got the old oil filter out of the way, take your new one and unwrap it and take your finger, dip it in some oil, and just run around this O-ring here to lightly lubricate it. And before you screw this on, take a rag and go up where you just took off the old oil filter and wipe that area, make sure it's good and clean. You don't want any dirt there where this seals. Okay, once you've got the oil filter on by hand, take your oil filter wrench again, put your torque wrench on it after setting it to 19 foot-pounds, and then just go ahead and tighten it to 19 foot-pounds. Okay, there we go. 19 foot-pounds. So she's tight. If you're going to safety wire it, you'll do that. If you're not, then you can go to the next step. So I'm going to safety wire this, so I'll be back in a minute. If you are going to safety wire it, the way you do it is you put a large hose clamp on the oil filter, and then you run a piece of the safety wire from this tab that's exposed. Once you snug this down, there'll be more tab exposed here, and you run your safety wire around that and to something stationary on the bike. Okay, if you're safety wiring your oil filter, as I said, put that hose clamp around the base of the oil filter, snug it up, and then run your safety wire through that tab, and with the safety wiring pliers, run it to something nearby. I'm going to run it here to the base of this, the coolant overflow tank. Okay, before adding your oil, which is the next step, double check that you tightened the oil filter to 19 foot-pounds and that you tightened that drain plug. I think that was to 22 foot-pounds. Once you've double checked that, then remove your oil filler cap and get out your small funnel and put it in the oil filler hole, and then start adding your 3 quarts of oil. Once you've added the 3 quarts of oil, before you install the cap, inspect that O-ring on the cap and make sure that it looks like it's in good shape, not broken or cracked or anything. And then go ahead and install that cap. If you're going to be safety wiring, then do that, and then you're all set to take it outside and run it for 5 minutes, checking for oil leaks. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, take the bike outside and run it for about 5 minutes and check that drain plug. Make sure there's no leaks, and check the oil filter too. Make sure nothing's leaking. And if everything looks copacetic, then after running it for about 5 minutes, then take it back inside and put that lower fairing on. I'll help you with that. Okay, to put that lower fairing back on, go ahead and position it underneath the bike. And I should mention, up here there's a funny little clasp that holds the 2 sections together. I've never been able to separate them, so I just leave the 2 halves connected up there. So I've always been afraid of breaking that little bracket. So just position it underneath the bike, and then we're going to take those screws that we removed and refasten this on both sides. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, before we start installing that fairing, note that there are at least 3 different sizes of screws that hold on that lower fairing that we're going to reinstall. So make sure that you're using the right screw in the right hole. If it seems like it's not fitting properly, try a different screw. Anyway, so we're going to start installing that lower fairing. Okay, it's going to be best to start with this upper mounting point right here. So you just tuck this underneath this mid fairing and put in that screw. So we're going to start there. I do this on both sides, and then we'll start installing the other screws. Once you have this upper screw in on the right side. Now we're going to go over to the left side. Okay, on the left side, start with this screw first. Get it in loose. Again, make sure that shoulder nests down inside the hole in the fairing, not on top of it. And then go to this screw here. And again, it's one of those shoulder screws, so make sure that the shoulder is down in the hole, not on top of it. And then thirdly, put in this screw up here. And don't tighten any of them yet. We got to get the rest of the screws in, so keep them all loose. Okay, on the left side, make sure that you've routed, before you get this left lower fairing on completely, make sure that you've routed these 3 overflow hoses through this slot. This is just forward, just beneath the kickstand. Make sure that those 3 hoses get routed into that slot, that opening in the fairing. Okay, this is the little fitting that goes on the bottom front of that lower fairing. So screw that screw out most of the way, and then you'll simply push it into the hole, and once it's seated in the hole, then you'll screw that screw part in, which will expand the lower part and hold it in. Okay, before you screw this screw in the lower front part of the fairing, make sure that on the inside that this black plastic piece on both sides is properly in place before you tighten this. And you've already installed that screw at the very bottom, the black plastic gizmo. So then work on this screw here on both sides, again making sure that this black plastic piece is properly in position before you tighten this screw here. Okay, again we're on the right hand side now. This was the first screw you put in, and then probably a good idea to get this screw in position here, and then this one over here, and then work on this forward one. Okay, one other note on these fairing screws. Screws like this one here that are screwing into metal threads, you can tighten well. That holds true for this one over here. But screws like this that just go into a rubber grommet, don't over tighten them. You can't tighten them a lot. You're not supposed to. Same with this screw down here. It just goes into a rubber grommet, so don't over tighten it. And the same with the screw at the very bottom back here. Don't over tighten that one. It just goes into a rubber grommet. Okay, last thing is go back, check all those screws on that lower fairing. Make sure they're all snug, but again, don't over tighten the ones that go into a rubber grommet. And then you're done with putting that lower fairing on. Okay, you're done with your oil change. That wasn't bad, was it? As you can see, the worst part is getting that blasted fairing back on. But other than that, it's a very easy job. So ride safely, have fun, and we'll talk to you later on. Goodbye.